Shortcuts for Zoom. Absolute pro. I wonder if it's smart enough to know not to show me in the back. But I'm not going to test it.
Hold on.
Status update, Brandon. I'm just sitting on the floor in the corner, so I'm not showing on the back of the camera.
Yeah, you're good. You want to lock the door as well.
Like, people like get things and they're like, I'm annoyed at you. But we're also have a pretty good cushion. We have 1,080 right now, so like, I wonder how many people would use So between my club and DevCord, we have 180 people.
Nice.
Yeah, the thing is, I was looking it up. I think it's like a 3 or 4 week period where like you have a, well, yeah, so 4 weeks straight of like grace period.
Anthony, oh. All right, everyone. So welcome to GitHub 101. Are you guys able to? Oh. All right, everyone. Welcome to GitHub 101. Hopefully, you guys are all able to hear me. Could I just get a few messages in chat letting me know it's all good? All right, cool. So the first thing that we're going to do for GitHub 101 is, or I'll give you an overview. Essentially, what we're going to do is create a GitHub repository, push a couple changes to it, and by the end of this 1 hour workshop, you'll be able to send somebody a URL to a basic website that you just made. And if you want to learn how to create a website after this, we'll also have an HTML and CSS workshop in a couple hours, and we'll let you know as that goes on. But the first thing you want to do is just go to github.com and log in, and you should see something like this. And the first thing that we're going to do here is just click on the plus and hit new repository. And I'll give everyone a few seconds. Generally, I'll wait till a few people give me a thumbs up in the chat or something like that before I move on. If I'm going too fast or too slow, just let me know. I'll try my best to keep a good pace with everyone. GitHub.com is just where you're going to be hosting the repository, and GitHub Desktop, we are going to be using that specifically to track our local changes. It's a good way to visualize it for beginners. If you're completely new to the sort of thing, hopefully it'll help you visualize it, but GitHub.com is where you'll actually be seeing your repository, making some of those settings, that kind of thing. And once you're here, just wait for me, I guess, give me a thumbs up in the chat or something. Or do a thumbs up reaction, anything will do. And once we're all here, I'll move on. Okay, so the first thing that you see here obviously is the repository name. I'm going to be using GitHub 101 v3 because it's my third time running this workshop, but I'll give you a table right here. If you go to hackathon.treasure.hacks.org/guides/GitHub101, you'll see this exact chart that I'm using. I'll put it in the chat as well. But here's just a few examples of what your repository name will be and what the site link will be. I would recommend not doing the last option just for this workshop. So for example, if I type my repository name as site, then my final URL that I'll share with other people will be treasurehacks.github.io/site if my name is treasurehacks. So in this case, I'll put GitHub 101 v3, and then you can do whatever you want for the description, but I'm just going to put up what the GitHub repo URL will be later. So that's what mine would be. And we're going to choose a public repository so that you can actually show the website to other people. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that. And I'm going to click Add a README file so that you can write more about your file. And we also need that just so you'll be able to see the right settings. So once you guys are here, I'll give you guys a few seconds just to look at this if you need it. But once you guys are done with this, you just click Create Repository, and now you have that on github.com. So let me know when you guys are ready to move on. And if you guys have questions, I'll be looking at the chat, so feel free to leave them there. Is everyone ready? All right, cool. So I'm going to click it here, and the first thing that we're going to do to actually enable the web page to work is we're going to head to settings on the top. So if you click on settings, and then there should be a tab for GitHub Pages. Here, Pages. And I am going to click on right here, GitHub Pages is currently disabled, select a source below, and I will click on the main branch. Yours might say master, but that's also okay. And we'll leave the folder as root, and then click save. You should see something that says GitHub page source saved. Actually, we'll be streaming this to YouTube as well. You can watch the replay after we're done. We'll send it to you after all the workshops, so you don't need to record it yourself. Yeah. Okay. So once you're done with that, we're actually just going to go back to code and copy this URL. When you guys are done with that, just let me know by giving me a thumbs up in the chat or something, so I know when to move on and get started with the website creation. The last step, so if you are in settings and you need to enable pages, you should be able to, my thing's not loading, but if you click on settings, there's going to be a pages tab on the left. Click that, and then, so you click pages, you click on, instead of none, you click the main branch, and then you just leave it as the root folder. So pages. And then this is what you should see. All right. So once you do that and you go back and copy your repository's URL, what we're going to do is go to GitHub Desktop. You should see something that tells you to sign in like this. And what you do there, just connect it with your browser, just click sign in and continue with browser, and now that should log you in here. If some usernames don't match, just check that, make sure it matches. But yeah, once you're logged into here, what we're actually going to do is go to File and Clone Repository, or you can do Control-Shift-O. And you should be able to see it right in your repositories list. But if you don't, you can also click on URL and paste in the thing that you copied. I'm going to be putting my thing in a different folder, but yeah, I'm putting it here. This is where I'll be saving mine, and once you have this here, you can just click clone, and now you have a copy of your repository locally. So once you guys are here, just give me a thumbs up in the chat, make sure everything's going well. If you have any questions, again, feel free to leave it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. Is everyone at this point where you see GitHub 101 on your top left and you see this log and you see the GitHub desktop in this state? Or do I need to show something again? Is everyone ready? Yeah, you're cloning the repository. So when you log into GitHub Desktop, you go to File, and then Clone Repository, and you should see the one that you just created. All right, I'm assuming we're ready to move on, so the next thing that we're going to do is open it in VS Code. So the easiest way to do that is just click right here, open in Visual Studio Code, and it should open a window with your code. I'm going to say yes, I trust the authors, and you should see something like this. Are we all here? Are we good? Is anyone lost? I just pressed open in Visual Studio Code. So if I go back to GitHub Desktop, I just press this. For use of Sublime Text, yeah, that's fine. It's just whatever editor you installed. Or if you want to open it in Visual Studio Code and you already have that open, you can go to File and then Open Folder. And then you'll be able to open the folder in VS Code if you want to do it that way. Or could I get a thumbs up from everyone in the chat when we're ready to go on? All right, cool. So the first thing is, if I go back to my browser, and you can see, if I go back to my code tab, this is going to be my URL, right? So the code that's actually going to be at this URL is going to be stored in a file called index.html. So if I type index.html right here, and then I create the file, after I push my changes back to GitHub, that's what will show in the cloud. Oops, index.html. And the first thing we're going to do with this file, you can generate a skeleton really easily for the web page just by doing !enter, and you have all the basic stuff here. I'm going to change the title of my page to something like GitHub 101 v3. And I'm going to add a paragraph that just says, welcome to my third GitHub 101 website. And I'm just going to add a little bit of stuff to this web page just so we'll be able to see it in a second. You can do whatever you want here, but this isn't really a comprehensive workshop on how to build a website. We'll have that later. And I'm going to actually copy this image over here. And I'm going to add an image with a source banner.png. So when you guys have something like this, go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the chat. So that way I can show you how to run this on a local server and test your web page, that sort of thing. How did I add the image? So I had an image just in another folder over here. What I did is I just dragged it into my file explorer on the left and I dropped it there. That will add it to your GitHub 101 folder. So in my case, it's GitHub 101 v3. Now it has banner. And then if you're talking about actually adding it on the page, it's just an image tag, image source equals banner.png, which is this one in the folder. And one thing you can actually do before we set up like a local testing environment is if you actually double click on index.html, it will open exactly that in your browser. And I'll talk about why you want a local server later. But if you just want to see the file itself, what you just created in HTML, that's what it is. You can also reload it, that sort of thing. So if you guys are just waiting for me, you can also mess around with your own HTML, build something small. But I'm assuming everyone is just about ready to move on. Is that right? Yes, no? Thumbs up in the chat. All right, cool. So what we're going to do, because actually what I'm going to go over real quickly is why you don't always want to use files. And the reason you don't want to always use something like this is once you start developing more complex things and you want to like make a network request so that you can put data on your page and that sort of thing, you're always going to want to do it from a local server as opposed to just running it in a file. And also some things like the root file path, if I did something like /banner.png, that would also not work in a file because the root is actually my root directory, which would be that. So essentially what you want is a local server so that you can have the correct root, you can have like all the stuff, you can have the page actually running as a web page instead of just a file. And the easiest way that we're going to do right now is if you just go to your VS Code extensions, you can type in live server. Mine's already here, but all you need to do is get this one, and over here it should say install. You click it, and it should be installed. If you guys are ready, go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the chat. If you guys have any questions just about what this is, why I'm doing something, go ahead and put it in the chat as well. Okay. So once you have the live server extension, you're just going to want to click on the settings gear and extension settings. And then the one setting that we're going to change, I believe, is called root. Might be able to search for it. Oops. Live server settings, root. And it'll say edit in settings.json. And this is the line of code that you want to add into the JSON file. And the reason you want to do that is because you want your localhost URL to be the same as your you want your actual website, or you want the path name to be the same. So in this case, my site would be treasurehacks.github.io/github101v3. I think I highlight this somewhere else in the guide as well. Where if this is mine and my essentially the URL is /github101v3, and I want that to be the same after the host name, which is treasurehacks.github.io. I guess this is better shown if I just click on go live on the bottom. This is how you can get a live server. So once you have this line in, I'll paste it in the chat if you still need it, but what you want to do here is just click go live, and it should open that in the browser. And mine is GitHub101v3. So you should be able to go to 127.0.0.1 or localhost. Both are the same. Localhost, same thing. 5500, and then it should say /github101v3. And the reason we do this is now you can see our URL is http localhost, and then after the host, you'll see /github101v3. If I take a look at what I want my URL to be in the end, it's the same thing. It's the host, and then /github101v3. And if yours just says localhost 5500 to be here, then that means you didn't add this setting in here. Hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, go ahead and ask me. I'll help you with that. But once we're here, any changes you make here will actually refresh automatically on the right. I'll put this here, see localhost on the right. If I make 2 banners and I save it, then you'll see a second banner show up on the right. And now what you have essentially is your HTML file, and it automatically updates at your localhost server over here. So if you guys have this, go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the chat so I'm ready to move on. Oh, if you still need the setting, I accidentally sent that to just one person. If you still need the setting, there it is. Are we good, or are we missing something? All good? Cool. So this is the part where Git comes in, and this is why it's called GitHub 101. So if you go back to your GitHub desktop, you should see the index and anything else you added. You should see anything else you added to your web page. So in this case, for me, it's my banner that I added to my folder, and index.html, right? And what Git allows you to do essentially is it allows you to keep track of every single change that you make. So if something breaks, you can roll it back a version. You can see who did what, if it's a shared project, and that sort of thing. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to say this is our home page, right? Actually, this should not be. Oops, I did something wrong. But essentially, this is our home page that we just created. So I'm going to create a commit called create homepage. And essentially, a commit is just a record of the changes that you made right now. And you can add a description if you want. And what we're going to do is just click commit to main and then push to origin. This will actually make it show up on GitHub. And if somebody else goes to the repository or they go to the site, they see your latest push on the main branch. So once you guys make a push to the push to origin, let me know so I know when to move on. Give me a thumbs up in the chat or something. Yeah. And once you push your changes, you should be able to go to your repository. You might need to refresh. And you should see something like 1 minute ago or anything that just shows that you just made this change. Once you see that, you can actually go to the website that you set in the beginning. In this case, it's my username, treasurehacks.github.io / and then whatever you call the repository, which in my case, GitHub 101 v3. And just so we can keep everyone on track, once you complete this step, just go ahead and paste your URL in the chat so that I can see what we've made so far. Is everyone able to access their site? I'm not seeing any links in the chat. I see one. Everyone else ready? Your settings.json file was different. The only thing that matters in your settings.json is this line right here, liveserver.settings.root, and then /. If you can't access yours on localhost, you probably just didn't type in your repository name after. Like in my case, it's localhost 5500 or 127.0.0.1 5500, and then after that is your repository name. That's probably why you aren't able to access it locally. If you can't access it on GitHub, then you probably just need to wait a minute for it to refresh. All right, Jared, I see your GitHub 101. That's great. Yep, looks like everything's working there. How do you get to the settings page? So if I go to extension live server, you can click the gear here also. Then you go to extension settings. You can click this gear as well. Go to settings. You just have to type in root. Should say live server settings root, and then edit in settings.json. The recorded video, that'll be available right after the workshop. You'll see a replay of it on YouTube. Is everyone else able to get their site working? If you got it, go ahead and take a look. Go ahead, paste the link in there. I'll try and see if it works on my end as well. And if you're just waiting for me, you can also just add some stuff to your little web page. And basically from there, if you make a change, let's say I want to remove the second banner, you'll see that VS Code actually keeps track of the changes. And then when I go to GitHub again, save. If I go back to GitHub, I can make another commit. And this is generally how the flow works, is you make another commit with your changes. In this case, it would be remove banner, or remove duplicate banner, rather. And I'll hit enter. And then you can actually see it if you go to your history. You can see there's another thing that shows your new commit, which says remove duplicate banner. And if I push it again, it will push it to GitHub, and in a minute or two, it'll update this. Is anyone having trouble with getting their GitHub Pages site to work, or are you guys just... Are we ready? What's going on? Okay, well, I'm gonna do one more thing while I'm waiting. If anyone wants to post their GitHub website link in there, I'll take a look at it. But one more thing I'm going to show is creating a link to another page on your site. So if you have just your home folder here, right? If you have your root folder here, if I create another folder called, if I create another folder, let's call this info, and then I create another index.html folder in here. Essentially what happens is, now this is another page that I can navigate to, right? And what I'll do in the second one is I'll copy some of this stuff over, but I'm just going to do this info about GitHub 101. So I'll create that. I'll give it a title, GitHub 101 free information. I can add another paragraph in here. And what I'm going to do here is put a link like this, ahref slash GitHub 101 v3, and I'm going to put the text inside, which will say go to homepage. And then in my homepage, I'm going to say info slash more info. So now on my homepage, you can see it says more info, and if I click that, it goes to the information page. If I click go to home page, it'll go back. So now that I've added another page, it's sort of the same process. Go back to here, you can see I changed my home page and I added another information page over here, as you can see. And since I've done that, I can just say create info page and push to origin. Does anyone have any questions? Is everything clear? What's the link to the website documenting all of this? So if you're talking about my guide right here, it's hackathon.treasurehax.org/guides/GitHub101. I'll also paste it in the chat for you. It goes over pretty much all the same stuff except for the live server part, which is a VS Code extension. But both methods should work, so if you decide to do that, it will also work. If you guys have any other questions about Git, how the commits and pushes work, all that stuff, also put those in the chat. But otherwise, we're pretty much done. And now you have a URL that you can share with your friends. In this case, mine is treasurehacks.github.io/github101v3. And that's pretty much it for hosting a static website on GitHub, just the very first thing. If you have any questions about GitHub, hosting a web page, that sort of thing, then you can also ask those in the GitHub help channel. I believe that we have that. I'll be there answering questions as well if you have questions about this workshop, if you want to know anything about Git in general. And another thing that I'm not going to go over in this workshop, but but you can read it as well. We have a resource called GitHub 201, and this goes over things like branches and how people can collaborate on code essentially. Basically, one person creates a branch, another person creates a branch for another feature. And yeah, we have a whole guide on that, so you guys can check that out as well. Your local server is working, but not the GitHub one. Let me check that real quick. Did you check your GitHub 101? Is that the right link? It looks like you might have sent me the wrong link. GitHub 102? I see your thing on... I see yours. Is your, in your editor, is your file called index.html? Okay, if you go to GitHub Desktop, do you see anything over here in your changes? Yeah, so if you don't push it, it's not going to update your live site on GitHub. So when you essentially you make a commit that records the change, and then when you push it, that's when it goes back to GitHub, and then that's when your page will actually update. So if you're not pushing the code, then it's not going to be able to update. Oh, I see. You created a different repository. So in this repository, I'm not sure if you... I think you just need to enable GitHub Pages. So to do that, you would go back to your repository, and then you click on Settings, and go to Pages. And your settings need to look like this. Otherwise, the repo won't actually be put to GitHub Pages. It'll just be a code repository. How to generate the link again? So essentially the link, you can actually see it if you go to your settings and pages. For example, mine is right here. It'll actually show you your website link. Your site is live at, and then your username.github.io/github101 on the info page. Okay, so if I go, so Jared, you said, can you show me the link back to the home index.html? So over here in my info page, I have a link which is the A tag in HTML. The link is in href, and then mine is /github101 v3. So if I look over here, this is my homepage, right? It's /github101/v3. So if I'm on the info page, and then my homepage is /github101 v3. So if I click on that link, that's where it goes. Chris, no problem. Yvonne, did I get your question? Did I answer it? Yeah, Jared, no problem. Okay, cool. Well, if anyone has anything else, I guess just ask me in the GitHub help channel. If you guys need help like storing your project on GitHub as well, just how to work between members, I'll also be open to answering those questions. And again, I'll leave this guide about the whole branches collaborating. I'll leave all of that in the Discord as well, so you guys can see that. I think it's a really helpful resource because I didn't learn that until many years of coding. So, you know, it's really helpful to be able to learn something like this where you know how to work with a team in code. And so yeah, please don't be afraid to ask questions on this sort of stuff because it's confusing as a beginner. I've definitely been there as well. So if you have any questions about how this whole thing works, feel free to just shoot me a message in Discord, and I'll be happy to answer it. So with that, that's pretty much the end of this workshop. Thank you everyone for attending. And if you guys have anything else, again, I'll be in the Discord. So I hope that helped you guys.